Hi guys, and welcome back to the Shauna and Joe Show. Today we're going to be talking about a very hot topic, and that topic is, how do you feel about parents who allow their children to use illegal drugs?
So
touchy subject.
It is, and we've had a lot of responses. I mean, I don't really know where to start, but personally I just think, like, based on my own upbringings and my own values, my family was never really a family to dabble in drugs or condone drugs, and that's kind of rubbed off on me. And I wouldn't even want to drink alcohol or smoke cigarettes around my family, much less look to be taking anything harder on a personal level, but especially not around my family. So I kind of struggle to understand the mindset of those parents who openly allow their children to do that.
I guess it's down again to the parents and the lifestyle they lead, really. I mean, myself as well, fully would be disrespectful if I did anything like that in front of my mum. I mean, I don't take drugs anyway, but if I did, it's definitely something I wouldn't do in front of my mum, because it's just disrespectful in my opinion. But then, if you've got parents who are, who are doing that, how can they turn around and say that? But let's see what the people had to say, because the young people had some interesting responses for this. So we're going to go to them, see what they had to say, and then we'll be back after that.
It's quite interesting what you mean by illegal drugs, but I think in general, it's not really good, obviously, because it's damaging to them, damaging to their body, and it's your child, so you should want to do everything you can to protect them and keep them in good nick.
If their parents allow them to do that, then that's them, innit? But if that was me, I wouldn't let my daughter do that, or son do that, because at the end of the day, that's I want them to have a healthy life and healthy them. So
I think it's just stupid, a bit low. Even though maybe if you let yourself do drugs and stuff, don't ruin your children's life and don't let them do that stuff.
Basically, they shouldn't really be a parent themselves, because I think personally, those kind of people who do make their children do that kind of stuff, they just, not that they don't love them, but they don't really care. Basically, they shouldn't really have kids in the first place if they're gonna treat their child like that and make them use drugs.
It's just nasty, innit? How can you allow your kids, even parents now, are promoting their kids to smoke? Oh, mum, do you have a fag? Dad, do you have a fag? And just willingly take out a fag and give. That's the starting point. They might just think, oh, if you're allowing a fag, then next thing I'm going to do is smoke weed. And it's going to escalate. Maybe they just go off into the pill taking, ecstasy and all of that. It's parents don't monitor their kids as how it used to be. Because remember back in our days, boy, lights out, hear you talking on the phone, come in, phone confiscated. And it wasn't even for the one night neither.
Personally, I don't think that's good. I don't reckon they should. But when you get to a certain age, your mom can't really tell you, yeah, she can tell you what's bad and or try and stop you, but she can't physically try and stop you. You're old enough to do what you want to do in it. So, yeah, but personally, I don't reckon it's good to do that stuff anyway.
In my eyes, that's really stupid, because, drugs is obviously going to kill someone. So why would you raise some form of life to end up killing it? That's stupid. You might as well not raise the thing in the first place.
That's a tricky question, because if your child's smoking crack, or he's doing heroin, or he's sniffing coke, it's maybe you need to have a sit down and have a real talk to your child, because I think things like marijuana, everything I listen to lately, it tends to say that it's never been proven to have drove anybody to murders or drove anybody to go and do stupid things that crackheads do. So it's you can't really compare something. You can't. It's like they like to put everything in one basket, and I'd be a hypocrite if I said, oh, but it's wrong if you let your child smoke weed, because. Know what I mean? My name's Kaya. My name came from a Bob Marley song, and the Bob Marley song is about marijuana, so I can't really talk, to be honest with you. But at the same time, I think it's all down to how you raise your child, isn't it? Like I said, discipline and raising your child, so that that whole drug thing is part of discipline. Showing them, you take drugs, you end up down this road, this is what's going to happen to you.
I personally don't think parents have a say about what their children do anymore. I mean, a lot of kids smoke, a lot of kids smoke weed and stuff like that, and inject and stuff, but it's not something that a parent can stop. I mean, they can give you help, but as for stopping you completely, I don't think it's down to the parent.
But what about those parents that allow their kids, condoning them?
in that respect. I don't think it's right. I just think that's very bad parenting, to be honest, and they should know more. They should know better than that to give your child drugs and stuff.
Okay, so that's what our young people feel about it, but let's see what our Facebook followers think.
Okay, so one person said, the position is the parent can only reasonably permit such an act if they are confident enough that their child won't inevitably suffer and is a strong enough individual, which is hard to judge, so it's probably not worth advocating anyway. But I believe a military stance won't achieve the results necessary for as little damage to be done, kind of thing. So what they're saying is you need to know your child and know how much you tell them, how much you don't tell them, and what you kind of allow. Which I guess as a parent you do. You know your child, so you know how to deal with certain issues that come up. But when it comes to drugs, I don't think you can condone it, even if you think your child is something your child could deal with. I don't know if it's something that I mean,
there's a difference between being aware of what your child's doing and condoning it. I mean, you can't keep watch on a teenage child all day, every day. And as a parent, you're likely to have an inkling if you think your child is, taking drugs. But that's different to allowing it and condoning it and being in effect supportive of it. I think they're two very different things, and that's what the debate is. That's what the issue is. So, I mean, this person says having a militant stance won't stop your child from taking drugs.
Is true.
And it's true, and I don't necessarily think you have to be militant about it, but I think it's about letting that child know that there's a respect boundary, there's a boundary. Your parent is not your friend that you roll with and par with on the street, so therefore those recreational things that you're doing, I personally don't think they need to be within the parent domain.
And also being militant, it doesn't work, but there's being militant and there's not condoning things, and not condoning something doesn't mean you have to be militant about it.
That's
either.
True.
You can still stick by your morals, which I think is very important, because if you're telling your child something up until a certain age and then you suddenly switch up, like obviously you tell your young kids, don't do drugs are bad, cigarettes is bad, drinking is bad, like you say those things, innit? You teach them that, and then it gets to the point where they're actually taking them, and you kind of turn around and say, well actually, I don't condone it, but you can do it in my house, or things like that. Like that doesn't make sense to me. You're completely just blasting everything you've said, and that just takes away from...
Which leads on to the next comment, and this person says, I think you can't be a hypocrite. If my child wanted to experiment, I'd rather they did it at home so I knew exactly what they'd taken and also be there if needed. If your child wants to do such things when they're a certain age, they will do whether you agree or not. I'd rather it was in my watch. So, I mean, this person saying, if my child wants to experiment, I'd rather they do it in my home, which I can get that as a parent. You want to be protective of your child, and the best place for you to protect them is within the home. And I suppose if your child's out there and they're buying certain drugs and they're not necessarily sure what they're buying, if they bought it and took it out and no one was there to take care of them, they could in fact pass out, be really ill, they could even die. If it's at home, the parents at home, they're able to be there and they'll know if something's wrong with their child and seek medical attention straight away. I do understand that, but at the same time, you supporting your child to take drugs isn't really informing them of the risks and the dangers. It's almost like, oh, my mum says it's okay, so it's fine. It's not that child's not necessarily making an informed decision. They're just making a decision based on the fact that their mum or their dad says it's okay to do it.
But something interesting about this, though, is it starts off with, I don't think you can be a hypocrite. So that's kind of saying that the person who wrote this must be taking some kind of drugs, whatever they may be. And I think that's true. You can't be a hypocrite. You can't turn around and you're doing something and you tell them not to do it, because there'll
be no respect there. If you're saying, I take pills but don't take pills, that child is just going to look at you and be like, yeah, basically.
Exactly. But also, like, you can't be a hypocrite, but I think being a parent is about sacrifice. This is something I really stick by. I think as a parent, you need to put your child first, and if that means you sacrifice taking your drugs or doing your vices, whatever it may be, because it's bad for the child, then you sacrifice it. For me, it was when I was first a parent, all my friends were all going out and they were partying, and they come back and they tell me about it, and first of all you kind of feel like you miss it, but then I realise it's so much more important that I'm there for my child. and I sacrificed going. I could have gone out. I could have, you know, not been around when my daughter was around and stuff and things like that. I didn't want to do that, so I sacrificed what I wanted to do for her, and because of that now the relationship is much better. And I think a lot of maybe parents don't see that it's about sacrifice.
Yeah, and you could argue that those parents that don't choose to give up their vices have a very selfish attitude, you know, and if that is the case, then maybe that's something that they need to look at within themselves, really.
The next one that somebody said is drugs are illegal for a reason. Parents shouldn't be too controlling, but they need to make sure that their children are aware of the risks and why the drugs are illegal, which I agree with. You know, drugs are illegal for a reason, and parents, if you are too controlling, eventually your child will rebel at some point. Even if it's when they're a young adult, they're 18, they're legally an adult, if you've been too controlling, they might turn around and completely go the opposite way. I do think the point here is to make children aware of the risks and why they're illegal. I think it's about education. You need to educate your children, so when it comes to them making that choice, which inevitably it will happen if you're out with your friends and whatever the drug may be and is offered about and your friends are doing it, you need to make a decision, and the more informed you are, the more sensible your decision is going to be, I think, and that's really the most you can do once it comes to a certain age.
Yeah, definitely. There's a bit of a Facebook debate that went on when we put this up. First person put, I think it's wrong and disrespectful for a child to do that. Fair enough, it's good to know what your child is doing, but there are limits. Plus, using illegal drugs will encourage them to try harder and more dangerous stuff. I'm 26 and I don't even smoke or drink around my mum.
And what was replied was, why is it disrespectful? It's definitely wrong, but I don't see why it's disrespectful to anyone other than yourself. Other people don't get harmed by it, hopefully.
So the other person responded to that comment and said, why would you take drugs in front of your parents when they more than likely taught you not to do it? I see it as disrespectful, and it links to what we were saying before. I mean, the person who didn't see it as being disrespectful makes a fair point. They're basically saying you're an individual, you're taking drugs, that's your choice. You're not asking anyone else to do it. You're doing it for yourself. It shouldn't affect anyone, whether it's your parent, friend, whatever, brother, sister, whatever.
Yeah, but I have to disagree with that. But that's from my perspective. To me, it would be fully disrespectful because, like this person said, it's your mum or your parents normally who teach you that it's not good. My mum taught me that you shouldn't take drugs, that it's bad for you, and she taught me the risks and all of that. So for me to turn around and then do it in front of her when I know that how that's going to make her feel, you know, that's disrespectful to me. The way it's going to make your parent feel is disrespectful, because I don't think there's many parents out there who, well, I can't speak for many parents, but my mum wouldn't be cool with seeing me on a drug and the effects of the drug. It would hurt her. So to me, that alone is disrespectful, you know?
Definitely, and that has a lot to do with the way that you've been raised and the moral values that your mum has instilled in you. I know some parents that they go out there and they take illegal drugs and they take illegal drugs with their children, and it's a social thing for them, it's a bonding thing. They go out clubbing, they take pills, they go get chips on the way home, and that's, you know, a parent-child bonding moment. And there's no talk of boundaries and respect and disrespect. It's not seen in that way, and that's their moral values and their upbringing, the way they were raised, and so it's very different.
Yeah, no, I guess I do agree with that. There's a very everything that we've been looking at so far has been we've been talking about illegal drugs, but I think it's important to kind of define that and define the differences. Now, illegal drugs obviously are illegal for a reason, but then you've got alcohol, you've got tobacco, you've got caffeine, you've got lots of different things, and that leads into what somebody else posted up. I think the problem is not illegal drugs, it's the immoral or unhealthy drugs. This society promotes drugs such as caffeine and aspirin, which are not good for you, but there would be no debate about parents and their children's consumption. I think people need to be more self-aware about all chemicals in general, and it's so true. I mean, cigarettes are one of the biggest killers, alcohol's another one, you know, and not just that. If you look at alcohol, it has massive effects. If someone becomes an alcoholic, massive effects on their family. It can destroy families, it can lead to abuse and all kinds of things. And we've been looking at illegal drugs, but there are so many drugs that are legal that still have such negative effects, but the government allows them, whereas they're putting these illegal drugs into different classes and, you know, classing how bad they are for us, but they don't do that with anything else, you know? So I think that's a little bit suspect.
I mean, it's interesting because our views on drugs and things are all kind of based on our Western society.
And what we've been told,
it's
really.
all based on what the government and the scientists and is what they tell us. And if the government put a label on things like, you know, there's that age-old debate about weed, marijuana, whatever you want to call it, cannabis, There's an age-old debate about that being, you know, it's illegal. Many people want to legalize it, and the government have decided that that's an illegal drug, but something like cigarettes and tobacco that have so many more harmful chemical things, that's illegal. And it purely can only be about money. Like, you were saying something about fluoride.
Yeah, I mean, because it's not just about, you know, drugs are many different things, and chemicals are in drugs, and one of the things that's really big is the fact that there's fluoride in the water. The government puts it there, they know it's there. It's not good for you. It was used by Nazis in concentration camps to dumb down the Jews, to make them more easy to control, because that's what fluoride does. It kind of mellows you, it makes you docile, exactly. Now the government put this in the water, and it's always been in the water, it's in our toothpaste, and from what I've heard, the containers that hold the fluoride, you know, they have to repair the pipes because it's so corrosive, it burns through these containers and stuff, and they're putting that in our water. And you have to ask, what's the reason? And if the government is doing that to our water, why should we even trust them, what they say on other drugs? And I'm not for drugs. I mean, most drugs I really just think are bad. Like, I don't agree with it, but that's down to each individual to make that decision. But why should we trust the government who are labelling it like this when it's clearly about profit or some kind of control, you know?
Which then ties in with the argument is if a parent allows their child to take those drugs, or do we only think it's bad because the government have been telling us all these years that it's bad? And it's a tricky one, and, you know, comment on this and tell us what you think. Facebook it, southblessed.co.uk, YouTube, whatever. Comment and let us know what you think about it, because this debate is never going to go away.
Absolutely. Okay, a few shout outs we need to do just before we go. A massive shout out to Vince at southblessed.co.uk. Thanks for making this happen. We couldn't do it without you, so thank you very much for that.
Yeah, same to Omari and DJ at Do Music for the soundtrack. Really appreciate it. And like the biggest thank you just got to go out to you guys that watch, comment, feedback, everything.
Keep letting us know, you know, keep letting us know your opinions and what you think about it.